ask, is it possible to have a secularized form of the work that actually leads to theosis? Doesn't the idea of secularizing these teachings miss the point? Then you say that you've been a student of this work for a long time, and you recently asked a bona fide work teacher, where are the saints? Where are the saints that the work has produced? And you say he had no real answer. While in Eastern Orthodoxy there is no shortage of saints, it is clear that the way provided by the Eastern Orthodox Church has taken many to theosis. With that in mind, you wonder what the point is in the Gurdjieff-Uspensky work. Gurdjieff left us some 70 years ago. Where are the saints? This is a very good question. Where are the saints of the fourth way? And what do we mean by saints? Not hyper-religious people or some strange form of individual locked into their box of tradition and ritual, but a person whose quality of being radiates agape love, is joy and lightness, essence, has entered the joy of the Master, lives in the peace that no one understands, is somehow incarnate blessing, ambassador, messenger of the Holy One, somehow reveals that the divine is with us. And it is very true that we do not see that in the official Gurdjieff lineage. In fact, a documentary has come out, made in France, with the last of Gurdjieff's actual disciples. Very old people indeed. Featuring Madame de Salzmann, of course, who has passed away at the age of 101. So all of these 80-somethings, the last of that generation who were there in the 40s when the Master was there. And a portion of this documentary will reveal anecdotes that are magnificent about Gurdjieff himself, the profound silence that he radiated, the seeing, something of the heart that one might not expect, something contagious that he gave out. And it is in this documentary that we find out that 2 weeks before his death, he piled students in his vehicle and went to a Russian Orthodox church and sat there for the longest time in the car, not saying a word. When I first encountered this, my thought was Gurdjieff's own questions and regrets. He who was mentored first and foremost by a Russian Orthodox priest who knew of the Neptic fathers who had made of the watch of the heart, hesychasm, all of these teachings, a secular version for the Western world. Sitting there, perhaps wondering, should he have strayed so far, been such a rogue, when the treasure chest is there? But then I wondered, since he piled his car full of students who now, 65 plus years later, perhaps in the 70s, were speaking of this, perhaps it was for them to wonder, what is this about? A seed for the future, perhaps. Not so much for him as for them. This is where you will find the continuance, the living waters, the roots, the origins, the life of these teachings. of this transformation of true metanoia. Because what is most striking to me in this documentary is precisely the lack of radiance of these old students of Gurdjieff who were there with him, who lived and breathed and saw him, and all these years later seem strangely barren, sterile, even unhappy. Witnesses by their very being to some giant missing piece in what they received of the teachings. So to the question, is it possible to have a secularized version of these teachings? The answer is no, with a caveat, because these teachings brought into the modern world, the Western world, the secular world, our world, certainly gave us a lamp, a direction, a capacity to approach the even deeper teachings, to begin the process that would lead us to further discoveries, to reconnect us to the mystical side of Christianity that we could not approach otherwise. Certainly that is my story and that of others that I know, giving us a code, a decoding key to wake, do not sleep, to the very meaning of the teachings of Christ. But just a beginning. So these teachings to a materialistic world, in Gurdjieff's case the world of the 20s, imagine, the roaring 20s, he brings this, and he presents it on the Champs-Élysées in Paris with the struggle of the magicians and exotic Sufi dancing and Eastern esotericism and strange mystery and secret brotherhoods, all to attract the intelligentsia of the time, which hasn't changed much down to our time, for the purpose ultimately of leading them to the authentic discovery, the shattering one, the radical humanity, communion with the holy, bringing them in a roundabout way, bringing us in a roundabout way to something so profoundly spiritual, so profoundly religious, and yet not of the external religion, but of that inner, transformative one. Because Gurdjieff left it open-ended, as I so often say. He pushed everybody away so he would not be idolized, sometimes in a brutal manner, with de Hartmann, Olga, and her husband, who was this great musician who helped him with that music that has remained, who were thrown out and suffered greatly. Why? Because ultimately we, each and every one, have to find on our own where this leads. And it doesn't lead to staying in the fourth way box, in the sterility of self-observation, self-remembering. It leads into consciousness of the holy. Rodney Collin, who was Ouspensky's key student, who was with him at the end, who literally was in his room where he died and would not leave it for days. He was so close to him. Ended up in South America and wrote extraordinary works like The Theory of Celestial Influence. Brilliant man. But he became, after they had all died, he became a Roman Catholic and wrote pamphlets on the mysteries. J.G. Bennett went off into Eastern teachings and other sort of strange avenues because there was no guidance, even though the word was out that Mount Athos held the roots of the teachings. Robin Amos, another student of Ouspensky schools in England, became a fellow worker with the monks of Mount Athos, going there some 60 times before he died. Having originally in the early 90s come to America with Mohaviev's Trilogy of Gnosis, thinking that that was his mission, and ending up being a disciple of none other than Saint Paisios of the Holy Mountain, a modern saint. So all of these psychological, secular, clinical teachings take us gently by the hand out of the culture and prejudices and presuppositions of our world and false, broken, damaged religious teachings that are around us. Lift us up like little children who have fallen on broken glass, very carefully, so that slowly we can begin to pull out of our fragmentation and wrong work and illusions and hemorrhaging, psychically and otherwise, so that slowly but surely, at a new level, on a new plateau, in a third state of consciousness, awakening from sleep, we can begin to find our way. Gurdjieff insisted that we verify everything for ourselves, not because it was all dependent on our rational minds, God forbid, what hubris, but so that we could eventually realize that we had to leap off the secular teachings and realize what this was truly leading us towards. Noetic, spiritual, religious, devoted, face to face with a mystical Christianity we knew nothing about. Hidden away from us not only by history and sociology and theological deviations, hidden away from us by religion itself standing in the way, and all the contradictions and hypocrisies. That we might rediscover the power that is really there in this theosis, in this path, in these instructions, in these elders, in this mastery of spiritual psychotherapy, cleansing us, freeing us, so that we might enter the true path, the true becoming, the ultimate potential for our humanity. This is what Gurdjieff came to give us. The rogue, trickster, incomprehensible man, no doubt, smiles upon every seeker who finds his way to the real treasure.